just in our sacred contract, I brought you out here, so I don't want to bring you out here on a pretext. I told you I'd talk in the first person. It's not even imaginable how painful this was. I mean, literally, people leave you to die. And they think you left them. They can't understand why you're going silent. So you've got basically a group of people saying they're breaking the silence when I'm the only person who's being silent. And why am I not talking? Well, because I have a couple of lawyers around me who say, don't say anything. Why should I not say anything? Well, they don't say anything because you actually have to recover your computer's hard drive. You have to actually, gather. And Israel's the only country in the world where sexual harassment is a criminal offense. And if, I wasn't able to recover all this information, not only my hard drive, not only instant messages, not only emails, but actually an enormous amount of other information, which I'm not going to go into here, which proves beyond a shadow of a doubt, and on that basis, the Catalyst article, which is a very serious investigative article that looked very carefully at all this first-person information was written, if I hadn't been able to collect that, I would be, completely and totally, vulnerable. So I had to spend like a year first collecting that information. During that year, I left an empty chair. Now, in the beginning, I wrote this letter. So, as you correctly asked, why did you write that letter? Where I kind of took all the sickness that happened on myself. So again, I wrote the letter that I sent on my website. I wrote it for 4 reasons. I wrote it because I was in complete shock and trauma. And I'd like to tell you, Luke, I saw this coming. I didn't see a thing coming. I did not. I was completely, as I knew that there was stuff out there. As you said earlier, what was your image? There was blood in the water.
Yeah.
But I had no sense that this level of what I experienced as betrayal could happen. And again, I'm not accusing anyone of being a betrayal. It's what I experienced as a massive betrayal. No idea it could happen. None. So first off, I was so traumatized, I literally couldn't breathe. Literally, I couldn't get a breath out. I would cry literally like every 3 minutes. I just burst out in just complete, uncontrollable tears. It's not even describable now. It sounds almost pathetic, but it wasn't pathetic. It was just, I was literally, and at a certain point, I came to Salt Lake, and I called up a friend here in Salt Lake, and I said, I don't want to live out the day. I'm done. This is so wrong. No one's listening to me, right? There's a kind of complete Kafka's trial in place. It's so, and pardon the expression, it's so fucked. Everyone's running and hiding for cover, painting these kind of connections that don't exist, and instead of allowing me to say, hey, let's all take responsibility for this, I'm kind of being kind of crazily demonized. I said, I'm just done. And my whole life has been about service. This is not service. And so I was just crying uncontrollably. And I remember I shut my eyes. I prayed to God that I shouldn't wake up. And I called my friend and I said, hey, I'm done. And she said to me, let me get it straight. Are you committing suicide? Or are you just dying? I said, just die. He said, okay, well, call me when you wake up. It was one of those. And, so the 3 or 4 times, and I just literally felt my life. I don't know if you ever had the feeling. I felt my life leaving my body. And it was kind of like teetering on the edge there. And for whatever reason, I kind of almost unfortunately woke up. And little by little, I gathered my strength. And little by little, I began to try and look at it. And little by little, I tried to understand what happened here. And little by little, I tried to move out of demonizing other people to really understand what's the complexity of this. What's my part in it? What's their part in it? Where is it a larger story of purification and liberation? Where is it a cultural story? Where is it a personal story? Where is it a Gafni early childhood story? Right? There's a lot of stories that you can tell. When I said about different prisons, Rashomon.
Rashomon.
So I could tell this as a Gafni early childhood story. All about, I could tell it as a victim feminist, the bastard story. I could tell about a Gafni personal responsibility story. I could tell it about a past life karma story. I could tell it about a, liberation story. I could tell it about, in other words, there's a lot of ways to tell the story, and everyone thinks they've got it. And what happened is, every time I would talk to someone, and again, I won't mention any names, but serious people, they would say, this is what happened, this is why it happened, and if you don't take my advice, you're gone. Then I would talk an hour later to someone else, and they would tell me the exact opposite. This is why it happened, right? If you don't take my advice, you're gone. And your head starts spinning. But at a certain point, I just had to go inside. And if you would ask me, what's the biggest gift of all this? At a certain point, I have to let go of Mordechai Gafni's existence. It was too painful. I just couldn't live in it. And so something happened that had never happened in my life before, but it's not because I was meditating well, right? It's not because I kind of reached, to my deep spiritual practices exalted state. That's not how it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It happened because I was in such radical pain that I had a choice. Either I was going to die, which I was very, very close to, or I was going to somehow, through grace, again, not from any talent of mine, just through complete grace, step out what Hasidim call leaving your ani, leaving your I, and entering ayin. Just living in a different space. The Buddhists call it taking refuge in the Buddha. Hasidim call it ishtabut. You're just before God. And little by little, and I'm trying to describe to the experience because that's what you asked me. Like my actual experience of life began to change. In other words, Luke Ford became not important. They're saying that, whatever. And I began to kind of live. Again, I want to be really careful here because I don't want to claim it as spiritual greatness because it didn't come from greatness. It didn't come from practice. It came from just either die or this. Two choices. I just began to live just completely here, now. And I remember when this started, there was a waiter that smiled at me, not even a waitress like this morning. I remember he smiled at me, and I just oh my God, I was just like basking and like, oh, this person just smiled at me. And you just hugged a tree outside, if I can reveal that. Luke Ford was out there hugging a tree, okay? Right? And that's how I began to live, and just to move into kind of a different space. And it's not that, I want to be really clear. I don't want to overclaim something. It's not that I didn't go back to fear. I did. But then I would go back to that space. And what would gradually begin to happen is I would live more and more in that space and less in fear. And that was a gift. It was a gift I never would have gotten without this. Not in a million years. I love to teach. I love to chant. I love to meditate. I love to live in divine space. You can tell that about me. You don't need me to tell you. I love Soul Prince. You're a schmuck that you don't like it. Right? But I never would have gotten to that space. And, would I therefore not reverse it all? Of course I'd reverse it all. That's not... Of course I would. You know what I mean, if someone tells you, of course I would. No one would invite that level of pain, right? Oh my God. But that gives you a sense of the story. I want to wrap up with, just to answer a question you answered earlier. What caused this? And in my understanding, 4 different things caused it. The 5th is the most powerful, which is mystery, meaning kind of beyond me. There's a mystery here, and there's a human arrogance when you kind of work it all out. So my 4 are just in the realm that I can small understanding, and then there's big mystery. Part of what caused it is, and let me start with the personal part. My own, lack of wholeness. Meaning people are hitting Hillary in the campaign. We talked about the campaign. You said you didn't follow it. It's a huge amount of shadow projection on Hillary, which got nothing to do with Hillary. But Hillary also has to look at what part of herself is a hook for the shadow. So, did I leave an empty chair? Was there an incredible amount of bullshit? People felt spurned and hurt, and a certain group of people gathered together and created of course. But just to dismiss it that way is the wrong way to go. So I have to look, what in me was a hook for their shadow projection? There's always a hook. And so that's one. So the first part of it is, my own lack of wholeness. Fully is a piece of the story. 2, malice. People deny malice. People don't like to admit that malice exists, but malice is real. Malice is driven by a lot of things. People think that they say, Gafni says it's about jealousy. How ridiculous. But actually, there was a lot of primal malice of the envy kind that was real. I felt it. I felt it in my body. It's a real thing. C, this kind of 25-year-old kind of Gafni hunt that created a kind of fertile ground for this. It created a prism which everything could be viewed through that prism. I want to get back, I'm going to say one more word about that and I'll get to 4. Unless we're talking about violent sexuality or, prepubescent molestation, almost everything in between, particularly adult sexuality, is viewed through a prism. If the prism's loving, it's good. If people lay a negative prism, you can make anything bad. And so basically, there was a prism that was developed over 25 years, which a couple of these people from 25 years ago participated in, and this kind of fed into the prism. So A, my own lack of wholeness. B,